Alright, well today was supposed to be the day that the barber got to go for a ride, but unfortunately it's a little grumpy and so it isn't going to want to run. So let me show you what it's doing. We're going to diagnose a little bit as to why I'm having an issue with one of the cylinders not firing. So when I fired it up, it fires up, but it only hits on one cylinder. Here both of them come on and one of them is coming out. Being really erratic, so now it's just running on one cylinder. And every once in a while, it'll pick back up and run on the other cylinder. If I throttle it up, I can't get that other cylinder to hit good. If I ran it real hard, it would probably pick up. But something's wrong with the cylinder, so I felt around on it. This one's heating up. So what I got to do is look, see what's wrong with my front cylinder. Now, it has been sitting for a few months in the winter. I try to start it every once in a while, but it could be that my carburetor stopped up and might have some issues with that. But I don't want to go there yet because I just really don't like taking the carburetors off of these. So I'm going to get set up and we're going to check a few things out and see if we can diagnose what the problem might be before we have to go pulling these carburetors off, because it may be something else. But we're going to check the battery voltage, we're going to check the spark, we're going to check and make sure all that's right, and then if all of that is okay, then I'm going to have to take the carburetors off. So let's get set up over here and we'll check the voltage on our battery just to see if that might be the problem. Alright, so let's have a look at the battery and just make sure that we got enough voltage coming from the battery. So I got a stabilizer on this bike, and so I don't have too much worry about it unless something's gone wrong with the stabilizer. But we'll be able to check that here in a little bit. So let's get her opened up. I got my battery in the little side pocket here. So right now I'm reading about 12.7 volts, so that's plenty. I got a little bitty battery and it does tend to run down, but it should be enough. If it starts up, that we'll be able to see that we're okay on our voltage. Alright, so here we go. Let's fire it up and just make sure that we're getting some voltage. Starts up on 2 and then it cuts off, but I'm still pushing above 12 volts, so I'm okay. And if I throttle it up, you'll see the voltage come up a little bit. So everything's working voltage-wise. So that means the battery's still decent enough to provide enough voltage to make it run. Alright, so the next stop before we go to the other side, because I know my rear cylinder's running because it's warm, what I want to do is hook a strobe up and just make sure my strobe light's working, and then we'll switch over to the other side. We're also going to see with the strobe on this side what the strobe react looks like, make sure that it's blinking good and everything. So let's get this guy hooked up. And it's really simple. This is just one that hooks up to the wire, and so all I got to do is give it some power off the battery, and then when I fire the bike up we should see it stroking. So we just hook that guy into the battery right there, and then I'm just going to hook the clip onto the wire like that. So then when I fire it up, I'll just shine it against the bike and you should see that it strobes as it's running, because I know that cylinder's running. So let's get her fired back up and we'll stroke it. Ooh, she's unhappy. Unhappy when it's only running on one. Put the strobe on, you can see the strobe is lighting every time that cylinder's firing. So my rear cylinder's firing good. You can see it's blinking steady on. Blink, 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 blink. The camera may not be picking it up every single blink, but it's blinking real steady, so I know I'm good there. Now let's move over to the other side, and I'm going to check that other wire, and I'm going to see what it's doing. You can hear it pick up on 2 and then it cuts back out. So something is definitely not right. So let's switch over to the other side, and we're going to see if the other one is blinking just as good. Alright, so we bring our wire over here, and we're going to hook up on this one. We're going to check and see what we're getting. So if you can see in the camera, it's not blinking every single time. I'm just getting a rare occasion of a blink. It's not blinking at all right now. If I throttle it up, you can see it blink. As soon as it picks up, it starts blinking. But then right there, it's not blinking, but every other. So something is not right. You can see it cut out. So what does that mean? Well, does that mean the coil's bad? Does that mean it's not getting enough voltage? Well, we don't know. And it could be that the RPMs are down so low that it's not wanting to blink consistently until that cylinder fires, picks the RPMs up, the voltage goes up, and then it starts blinking again. So alright, so let's get set up. We're going to take a plug out, and we're going to look at this front plug, because the next easiest thing to do is just pull the plug and swap it out. And then, if that doesn't fix it, then we're going to have to play with the carburetor. So we'll get set up over here, and we'll take a plug out. Alright, so let's have a look-see at the spark plug, because out of all the things to do, all of this stuff's pretty easy. But we don't want to have to mess with those carbs unless we really have to. And we all know how much fun those are to get out. So let's take the plug out, and we're just going to have a look-see at what's going on with the plug to see what we got. Alright, so if we look at the spark plug, we can see it's pretty black, and a lot of that reason is because for the bobber here I got it jetted bigger, and so it tends to darken up my plugs and it'll foul them. So that's a potential. If we look at it though, we don't see any gas, like extra gas built up, and so it does make you wonder whether or not it's getting fuel. But I'm still not going to rule out that it's something else besides the carburetors, because I really just don't want to have to take those off. So let's dig on down in here, and we're going to look. Now if you can see, I'm running iridiums, and so these are the BP R7EIX, and I've been running iridiums on this one for a while because they don't foul as bad as the regular plugs, but the little R stands for resistor. So if you're going to run like those iridium plugs, what you got to do is inside of here you got to take the resistor out. So there's a little resistor inside of these NGK wires, and so I'll just show you real quick that if I pull this out, I've replaced the resistor. All you got to do is take a screwdriver and crank the end of it that connects up to the spark plug. Just take it out, and inside of there is going to be a resistor. Now this isn't a resistor, it's a little piece of brass that I made to replace it. Right here is what the resistor looks like. So it's a little ceramic resistor. And so in order to run the resistor plugs, I had to remove that resistor, replace it with a piece of copper or a piece of brass, and then put it back together, and then I'll just use the resistor that's in the plug. That allows me to use those iridiums because they don't come in a non-resistor type. So as simple as that, you can pull your resistor out of your wires, and if you can get it to thread, a lot of times they don't thread up in there good. There we go. So we got our wire without the resistor, and so we can run a plug that does have resistors. So it could be the plug here. So what we're going to do is swap out, because this has been in there about 3 years, and I'll just swap it out. Maybe this is the problem. We're going to find out real quick. So here's a brand new one. You just got to take the cap off, and then we can use it for the motorcycle. But before I do that, while I got the plug off, I might as well go ahead and check my compression and see. So let me put my old plug back in, and I'm just going to ground it against something right up here on the head, and and then I'm going to put a compression tester on. So I'm just going to check the compression of the cylinder while I got the plug off, just to make sure that I got good compression. So we'll dial this in, then I'm going to crank it over and let it run on the back cylinder again. And we'll just make sure that we're reading good on our compression gauge. So let me hang this guy up here somewhere. Alright, so with the bike running only on one cylinder, I'm only getting about 62 PSI compression, so you might think that cylinder's dead. But the problem is I got my throttles closed, and so that's misleading you. So if I open it up, you can see the compression goes up. So that's about 100. So you can see as I throttle up and open the throttle, the compression goes up. Mislead you if you only have one cylinder firing and you throw a gauge on there, because what I was reading was about 60 before, but you can see I'm leaking back down now, but I'm really at about 150 on that cylinder when I open the throttle up. So I'm fine on my compression. I'm right at about 150. I rebuilt this motor, so I know it has good compression. So compression is not my issue, but just be warned, when you put a gauge on there and you're trying to check compression on one cylinder, it's going to read low because the throttle body's closed and it just can't get a lot of air. When you open the throttle body up, you'll see your compression come up. Wherever it stabilizes at, that's the compression that you're getting. Alright, so we got good compression. So let's take that back off. You can see I built up quite a bit. So it's not a compression issue. So now, the last thing that we can do to check before we have to take some carburetors off is actually change out this plug. So I'm going to change my 3-year-old iridiums out, and I got another brand new one. So if it's the plug, when I throw this in here and fire this bike up, it should stumble a little bit to clean itself out, and then it ought to take off running again, and that'll tell me that it was just a fouled plug, because this bike tends to foul plugs. But you can see the difference of it, and it's because of my jetting. I'm running bigger jetting on it to give me a little more oomph going down the road, but it does tend to foul the plugs. I can compensate by using these iridiums, and I can go about 3 years on these, so who cares? 10 bucks for a plug in 3 years, that's not bad at all. So let me throw this one in here. This is our last chance for the bike to run today, or else I got to pull these carburetors off, and we're going to have to do some cleaning. So let's cross our fingers that this is what our problem is, and maybe we'll be okay today. So there we go. So now let's fire this thing up and see if that fixes our problem. Suddenly I'm hitting on 2 again. Throttling up good. So now I got a good plug that's firing. Let me put my strobe on there and you'll see the difference in the spark. There you go. So now with a good plug, the coil's able to fire it. It's not grounding out, and so my spark is real steady like it was on the back. So what the strobe light does for us is it lets us know that either we're not getting any power from the coil or something's wrong with that, but it can also tell you whether or not you got a foul plug, because the strobe doesn't want to light when the plug is not good. So really easy to see with just a cheap strobe light, and just hook it up to the wire. You can see exactly what's going on. But fortunately, that was our problem, is that we just had a fouled plug. Alright, so we're back in business. We got rid of our plug, and I'm actually going to keep this because I run iridiums on my other bikes too, and the stock bike is a lot leaner, so although this plug is fouled, I can put it in my stock bike, and because the bike runs a lot leaner, it's not going to run right until it gets going, but eventually the stock bike can clean that plug up for me and I don't have to throw it away. Or I could just toss it since it's 3 years old. Who cares? You know, probably $4 a year for the plugs. Change those things out when they go. But the big thing that we saw is that just because it's not hitting on one cylinder, it doesn't necessarily mean that the carburetors are bad or the carburetors are dirty or something like that. It could be something very simple, just like a fouled plug. So now we can go for our ride that we were going to go for today, and the bobber's back happy again. We're going to finally get to head out for our ride today and enjoy this pretty spring day in Tennessee. Well, alrighty. Well, thanks for watching.